Don't forget to suck some titties.
Maybe guys that are younger than me, guys my age, and even guys that are older, that it gets me to thinking that, you know, from the outside world in general, you will be shamed for having angry feelings, for taking your anger out. And I think, for one, you should always be okay with the fact that you feel angry. Being angry itself, showing anger, being mad is actually not a problem. Obviously, don't beat the shit out of people, but if you're going to hurt anyone, hurt yourself. You know, punch your thighs, punch your boobs, whatever you got to do. By boobs, I mean the guys, because it'll still hurt a lot less than if you ladies try to punch yours. I don't know if you've accidentally slapped the ladies a whoop whoop, but that is a experience. It is not something that gets out of your head. Oh, it's a formula is expensive, but $58 for a can, just for shit that smells like yeast. But they'll tell you the kids need it. But no, anyways, I do believe that anger it's honestly, it's one of those things that you can never get rid of. And the number one thing, in my opinion, that I think you just got to accept that it's a part of you. When you have quote unquote anger issues, people will say, you can't control your temper. You know, you don't have a strong ability yet to really use it healthily, as people will say. What I'll tell you is that we live in a world where society kind of just tells us that we're not allowed to react to what we see. We're not allowed to see things for what they are. We're not allowed to feel incompetent about ourselves. We're just supposed to pretend and act like we are the greatest thing that ever fucking walked this earth. And our shit don't stink. Well, the number one way we acknowledge our shit stinks is by being angry at ourselves. Anger is honestly typically an emotion that comes out when you feel less about yourself, about something. You know, typically, if you notice, a lot of men out here are angry over a couple things. One, when they feel like they aren't good enough to do, let's just say for most guys around my age, when they feel like they are not good enough to be able to be as successful as they aspire to be. Or when they feel like they do a lot of, they feel like they're putting all the work they need to, and there's just nothing coming from it. You know, you do something for a long time, there's nothing coming from it. You get guys who feel like they have a lack of success with women, regardless of their success in other areas. So that's when you get these guys that are quote unquote incels. These guys take all their anger out on women, who blame a lot of other things because throughout life they're told they do X, Y, and Z, the woman will come to them. And then women are still with guys who ain't shit when you think you are the shit. So you must think they're the problem, right? When really, the truth wasn't told to you, you know? And thirdly, it's when people always want to put you in a box, right? Like, throughout my whole life, everyone always says that your anger is an issue. It does you no good to feel that anger. You just need to learn how to cope with it. I had a therapist when I was younger, and the word of cope, it always made me want to just cope my balls, like God, the word means absolutely nothing. Coping, when you hear the word cope, it's an excuse to just be like, hey, you just got to eat that shit up. And from a young age, you're just told to eat that shit up. Eat that anger up and deal with it. And what they don't realize is what they do is they make you pretend that you go through a lot of years of your life where you learn to not be angry. And then, but because you just ignored your anger for the longest time, you never actually acknowledge things along the road of what made you unhappy and dissatisfied. And then all the shit just hit you in a week and a half and fucking NVIDIA. No. But, God, I fucking hate NVIDIA. These fucking Chinese chip stocks. Fuck you in the ass, But neither here nor there. I sound like a psycho right now, but I promise you. Not medically. But you go through these when you have a lot of anger in your youth and you become grown-ish, you become an adult, and you realize those anger feelings don't go away. And that's an uncomfortable truth. But people are just like, you just need to act like they don't exist. It's like... Or what we have created is we've created a world where we want a group of people to be inauthentic, but we want everyone else to be themselves. And we just want everyone to live in this bubble of you can only feel these emotions and be comfortable with them. I kind of, people make fun of these homeless people in subways. They're just screaming and shouting jazz lyrics and all this stuff, And I kind of get it because I think people get to when you get to that point in your life, you have nothing to lose. You're like, I just wish I was this free in the way I can speak without caring. That's the one thing. Like, I'm not saying be homeless and, live in a subway and all that stuff, but the freedom you have to where no one is going, people are more like, hey, they're really the free ones. Homeless people are more free than people who have something to lose. Because you have something to lose, you have to live in this you have to live in norms in order to be accepted in general. And if you have quote unquote anger issues, you're part of the problem. When it was kind of like, I don't know if you guys are into like the autism community. There's these shows about, people on the spectrum, love spectrum. It's funny because people are because it is funny how people are just interacting and they just literally just say what they feel. And it is the most like funny thing because normal couples would not do that. But then what I see is what everyone actually feels and wishes they could say. Like you wish if you met someone and you found them attractive but you just didn't feel comfortable with them yet, you wish you could just say like, nah, I don't like you yet. And say you have to be like, it's such a nice day out, it would just be nicer if we just did this another, you have to beat around the bush, it puts it puts women in positions where they gotta beat around the bush to soften a man's ego, and men have to pretend to be something that they know they're not just to get in your pants to make you feel comfortable. That isn't authentic to their. Where these these two people, they're just like, you smell, and he's like, I rolled in grass earlier. It's just like, well, that's why he smells. And they save half an hour of uncertainty. Now, I know that it doesn't build the suspense or the beautiness of disbelief and all this nonsense. But if you ask me, it's weird that we call people on the spectrum, we call them, quote unquote, the ones that are special or disabled. Really, they're actually the normal ones. They're the ones actually living authentic lives. They're the ones saying what they truly feel. And we accept their anger, but quote unquote someone who's normal, we don't accept their anger because they're not supposed to be like that. I know that, people are going to say you're ignorant for this shit. You have no idea what it's like to raise a kids with special needs. It's not the point I'm trying to make. I'm talking about from a pure, beauty, from a pure, genuine spectrum. No pun intended. People with autism and Asperger's and people with these enhanced, they're really the ones that are enhanced. They have the advantages. They see the world from a what it is standpoint. We, in order to fit into the world, to make ourselves feel special, because honestly, us who don't really specialize in anything, we try to be a master of 80 different things, when someone like, Asperger's, they may not be sufficient in a lot of things, but they are so goddamn good at one or two things that when they are locked into that, they can be the best of the best at it. And they have a better chance of making a great living. They have a better chance of being, quote unquote, what we all seek in this world: loyal, genuine, honest. But that's not really what we all want. We all, and I'll say it for myself, we all want to be a false version of ourselves because we want to be accepted. We don't want to be seen as someone who's off. We don't want to be seen as someone that you wouldn't want your partner to introduce their friends to. But then part of you's like, hey, I don't need to, Part of you's like, I don't really want to be either. But you also don't want, you want to be able to be like, yeah, that's great, your friends want to see me. But fuck them. I'm not speaking about me, by the way. I'm just saying as an example. But the point I'm trying to make is anger and the way we look at it is frowned upon. But without anger, we would never get to the bottom of anything. Without anger, we would just accept everything and we would try to rationalize everything. Like when you see pedophilia going on, you should be angry. You shouldn't be like, well, you know what? How did that person grow up? Were they abused? Were this and that? I don't give a fuck. This is what you do. Because you know what? I'm judged based off if I lose my shit in public, no one's going to be like, hey, did he ever feel worthy? No one's going to give a fuck. They're going to be like, this dude's a danger to society. And that's human instinct. You should feel like, hey, I don't know about this guy. So, I don't know. I just, I think sometimes we just need to get, fuck coping. Thank you to the therapist when I was younger, but this podcast is better than therapy, I get to remind myself how ignorant I am. I get to get feedback of how ignorant I am, and I get to just keep going and putting this out to the public till the government comes to my house and says, hey, you went too far with that one. One day, which, by the way, did you know the Pentagon had a McDonald's in it? Mm-hmm. Supposedly. So, there's your fun fact of the day. But yeah. Yep. Yep-a-roo.